Hello and welcome back to the second episode of the tentatively named Leftists Be Like podcast. I think as of right now I might keep it that name. I'm your host, Donutmorris, Bryson Morris. It's Donutmorris on all other platforms if you want to go check me out. I'm most active probably on Facebook these days, on TikTok. I'm trying to get more into Twitter again, but Elon has had me soft blocked for quite a while now because of the things I say on there, so I don't know if I'm really going to try on there, but YouTube is where I'm trying to explore next, guys. Hopefully some of you come in here and watch and listen. If you're watching from Spotify as well, hello to you. Today I wanted to talk about a subject that I was inspired by because of all things a TikTok comment section. This was a video, and this is not about this video in particular, more about the dynamic surrounding it, but the video that I watched was a young woman who was clearly in the military, and she was talking about how basically she was offended at the idea that she was in the military to fight a war for Israel. However, she was obviously, the implication was obviously that this young woman was still proud to be in the military, still happy to be in the military, but no, she's not fighting Israel's war, and she's not evil because she's not actually fighting in a war. And I got into quite a scuffle there in the comments section because I am a leftist, and obviously the imperial military force that has caused more damage than any other military force arguably in the history of the entire world is evil, and the people who join it are very, very, very complicit in it, if not completely guilty in its crimes, even if you're not directly involved in the crimes, especially active duty during times of warfare. But the thing I was running into there were people, and the actual woman I was talking to in the comment section who made the video, I'm not sure that they were being very genuine because they were kind of had 40 million excuses for everything. And if you're an adult, just suck it up and accept your responsibility. But the people in the comments were saying things like, well, you don't know why they enlisted, you don't know why they joined, you don't know their circumstances. Most people join because they're poor. That is a sentiment that I saw in that comment section a lot, and it's something that I hear in real life quite often as well. And it's things like that I kind of just want to dispel. And really what I would like to do is maybe give myself and the people who listen to this podcast the tools to combat discussions like that, because those are some of the most common things that you'll hear a lot of pro-military, pro-imperialist people say, especially even on the liberal progressive side. And that's one thing that if you are a baby leftist out there, or you are a progressive who's traditionally voted for liberals or Democrats, and you're trying to get more leftist, or you're trying to learn more, I think that's a thing. That's one of the last things that people who aren't actually very well read actually look at and change their mind on, is the military and imperialism. Because growing up and being born in America, we have such a propagandized belief system around the military. They are so worshipped. We just grovel at the feet of our military members no matter what they've done. If you grew up in America like I did, you have heard so many times about the people who have fought for our freedoms, that you wouldn't be able to speak right now in this way if it weren't for the people fighting for you, and all of that other propaganda garbage. And I do want to preface with saying I have multiple family members who have been in the military, who are in the military. My grandfather fought in the Vietnam War. He is passed, rest in peace, but he fought in the Vietnam War. I'm not detached from this issue. It's just something I believe in very heavily, and something that until recently, when I really started reading and actually researching and becoming a leftist, I did not believe in myself. I was certainly a progressive who definitely believed in a lot of imperialist principles. Now, if you would have went to me and said, hey, is this thing we did bad? I would go, yes, but I would not have told you that joining the military is a bad thing. And I have since changed my mind on that, but I want to help other people change their minds. And I want to do that through tackling some of these ideas and propaganda points, talking points that they have piece by piece. One of the first things I really want to talk about, and I really think is super important is the idea that everyone joining the military, or most of the people joining the military, are joining for some financial gain or the benefits, or there's no other way they would get education, things like this. A interesting study that I read, which, by the way, was actually quite hard to find. There's really not a lot of research on this that was readily available just off my first couple searches, which I'm sure is deliberate. But the class-based conclusions of enlistment in the military, and this is specifically related to more recent, so the post-9/11 military enlistment. It's a little bit different before and during the Vietnam War when the draft was a thing, but we no longer have a draft, and you'll often hear the term poverty draft, which referred to the way in which the military would predate on poor people and young people to get to join the military, and this was much more applicable during the actual draft, where they genuinely did go through and look at candidates who could have joined who were 18 years old, and they picked working class, poor, rural, uneducated people to join the military. That was purposeful, and they had no choice in the matter. They either went to join the military, they became a conscientious objector, or they went to prison. Those were your options. But since the draft was mostly abolished in 1973, they say it's abolished, but it could really come back at any time if they wanted it to. But since it has been abolished, and especially in the most recent times, studies actually show that the people who enlist in the military come from families that are above average incomes. The people who join the military are en masse middle class and oftentimes upper middle class. These people are living better in better families than most Americans, and then they go join the military. The statistics on the military, basically politically, economically, in almost every way, they are majority right in the middle of everything. So the financial, they're right at the average or right above. Politically, they're right at what the political average in America is like, the political center or whatever. And so the thing about that is, obviously, they're not joining to escape poverty because they weren't in poverty. And if you'll actually look, the numbers skew heavily away from poor people joining the military and away from rich people joining the military. So the bottom and the top on the extreme levels are actually underrepresented in the military enlistment. So there are more middle-class people than actually are represented in the American population. So obviously this is no longer a poverty draft, and these people are not just joining because they're trying to escape poverty. But let's even take that idea into account. Let's suppose that it is a poverty draft still, and 90% of the people in the military joined because they were poor and they wanted to get an education. I don't know how else I can say this other than there is no amount of money and education you could give me to go murder innocent children overseas. Period. Full stop. It is that simple, because any other way you look at it, you're ignoring something. If you think that you're not murdering children because you're pushing a pen and a paper, that's just ridiculous. I mean, being a willing participant in the most evil and dangerous force in the world makes you complicit. We are complicit as Americans who aren't in the military for giving our tax dollars to the military, and I am guilty of that as well. I pay my taxes, and I wish that there was really a way around it. I don't particularly find the don't pay your taxes method as a great method of protest. Like, I can't really, cause a socialist people's uprising if I'm in prison necessarily. So unless you're Nelson Mandela or somebody who already has, yes, but the idea that you're not complicit if you're just a paper pusher is just ridiculous to me. I mean, if you are a part of, let's say, Flock or Anthropic or Palantir, one of these companies that is actively working towards the crypto-fascist future that we're going towards in this authoritarian state, if you're just pushing a paper, you don't get to say, oh, I wasn't complicit in that because I wasn't actually firing the gun. I wasn't actually installing the camera that was watching innocent immigrants as they went to school. I didn't actually go and arrest those innocent people. I didn't actually kill those people. That's not how any of this works. Do you think that the Nazi scientists were not guilty of their crimes? Do you think that the Nazi soldier who didn't actually shoot a Jew or didn't actually put a bayonet in a gypsy's back and walk them to the killing fields or to a gas chamber, do you think that that person is innocent? Because I don't, and if you do, I have some very, very big questions for you and some very big concerns about you and your personal beliefs. So to me, the whole complicity argument, if you join the military, you are complicit in the crimes we are committing. There's obviously different levels of it, but the fact that the people who are barely complicit in it, to at least their own ideology, have the nerve to go on social media and tell other people that they're not complicit in it and be presented with facts and death numbers and things like that and still represent the military in that way, you are complicit. And it's proof in and of itself. I personally think that people who don't even talk about it or even support the military in that way or clap like a seal for the military as we kill hundreds of innocent children in Iran or innocent civilians in general, I think those people are complicit too and very guilty too. But the whole I'm just following directions thing is just absolute nonsense, and it's been proven nonsense forever. And, you know, in the 1940s, after the Nuremberg trials, I'm pretty sure most of the world would have agreed to that premise that I'm just following orders is not a good defense. My grandfather, which these words make me ask some questions nowadays, but when he was still alive, he would tell me there's always a choice. You know, the Nazis had a choice. The Nazis, a lot of them were military-age men, and sometimes they were coerced by guns to say, hey, basically you join the Nazis or you die. Those are your options. And in that, there is a choice. As much as you may not think it's a choice, there is one. And if you are presented with the mass slaughter, murder, torture, rape of innocents and your own death, that is a choice, and there is a correct answer. I hate to tell you. People in the IOF right now, the IDF, in Israel who are slaughtering children, they have a choice. They have forced mandatory service in their country. However, there are people who conscientiously object, and there are people who go to prison. If you still choose to go into the service as an IDF member, an IOF member, you are guilty. That is the bottom line. You have a choice. The choice may be painful. The choice may be hard. It may take a lot of thinking. You may have to make big sacrifices. But guess what? Those Jews in World War II, those gypsies, the black people, the gays, and now the Palestinians or the innocent Lebanese children, the innocent children in Iran, they didn't have a choice. Their result was death, and they were not given a choice. So when we have a choice, we must choose to resist the forces that kill them. And it really is that simple. And I understand that not everybody is there, but I would like to help in guiding people there, if at all possible. And I am constantly reminded of the quote by Ernest Hemingway, who obviously flawed individual, but great quote. They wrote in the old days that it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country, but in modern war there is nothing sweet nor fitting in your dying. You will die like a dog for no good reason. And that, I mean, just completely true. This is what imperialism is. And I do disagree with the leftist perspective. There are some who like to say, you know, did your price of gas go down? Did your eggs go down? All of this stuff. Correct. Like currently the Iran war is actually hurting Americans. The Iraq war probably in some ways hurt Americans. Afghanistan in some ways hurt Americans. Vietnam hurt Americans in a lot of ways. However, you have to realize we are benefiting from imperialism every single day. We are the empire of the world. We are the strongest empire in the history of the world. No one has ever really had this amount of control over such a large amount of land and people. Because, you know, our country on a map isn't the biggest in the world, but we have over 800 military bases all across the planet, and so many powerful countries bend their knee to us. There are basically like 3 countries of any significance in the world that oppose us to a real degree. So the idea that we aren't the most powerful empire is ridiculous. And the idea that we're not benefiting from that empire is also ridiculous. We in America are the most privileged people in the world. We're living the easiest lives. We're living the best lives. And things do get tough here. And that is true. And a lot of people don't like to hear that argument because they hear privilege or white privilege or things like that, or American privilege. And they think, oh, well, my life was hard. I had struggles. That doesn't mean you're not privileged. The privilege is having those struggles and being able to move past them, being able to succeed despite the struggles, and having less of those struggles. And those struggles compound. If you are a black Muslim woman in this country, your struggles are going to be so much higher than a white man like me. And that struggle compounding is exponential in other countries, especially the countries that we are empirical over, the countries that we dominate, the countries that we don't let breathe. Right now, great example is Iran. The Iranian people are suffering at our hands. And before that, yes, they were suffering to some extent under their own regime. But who is responsible for that regime? Who overthrew their democratically elected governance, their popular democratically elected governance, who was socialist in nature in the 1950s? Oh, it was America, the CIA, and Britain. That is who overthrew their democratically elected people. And so the 1979 revolution is the fault of our own. So, and that is the thing with imperialism that we often ignore or just don't think about, I guess. And the concept of blowback is very well studied, and it's not even really a theory at this point. It's just more of a fact. But imperialism begets more imperialism. And by that, I mean basically the entire point of the American military strategy since the start of the Cold War, post-World War II, was to create problems overseas. It started in the 1940s and 50s with communism, anti-Soviet, stuff like that. But the thing is, we create problems there, so we go communism bad. We go in, we do some major intervention, kill a few presidents, coup, overthrow the government, whatever we got to do, maybe even a full-scale war. What happens in the aftermath of that? What happens in the aftermath of that is things like Saddam Hussein in Iraq. We help Saddam Hussein for decades. We're on his side because he's the warlord that is opposing the forces that we don't like, such as Iran post-1979. We go over and we help Saddam Hussein take on Iran because of the government that we are essentially responsible for happening in Iran. And so then we're on Saddam Hussein's side. Well, what happens when Saddam Hussein commits mass atrocities and tries to genocide the Iranian people? Well, we arm both sides and basically cut our losses and pretend we were never there. Oh, just kidding. 3 years later, we have to go to war with Saddam Hussein in Iraq because he's invading Kuwait. Like, this is what imperialism is. And all those dollars, all those weapons manufacturing companies, all those oil companies, they are just chomping at the bit because it's just constant cycle of warfare, imperialism, domination over and over and over again. We go in, we dominate, we overthrow whoever was there before, whether they're good or bad, democratically elected, dictator, doesn't matter. Just as long as we secure some capital, we secure some oil, we secure some power in the Middle East, we secure the Latin American continent, whatever. And then in the aftermath of that, they use our guns and missiles and tanks and bombs and everything that we leave behind and the money that we probably gave them to fund them to form resistance groups against us, who then go do sometimes very awful things with the bombs and things that we gave them. I mean, who do you think gave the pre-Taliban people in Afghanistan their guns, weapons, ammunition, and money? It was us when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in, I believe it was 1981 or 1980. We gave the people who became the Taliban all of their weapons and things that they would one day go on to use to resist against the Americans after 2001. This is imperialism, and it's not a mistake. That is something that needs to be very, very well understood and hammered home. This cycle that we have here is not a mistake, and when you come to realize that, you can go back in history, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can go back and look at basically every intervention we've ever done and just look at it and use what I just told you and look at it through that lens and tell me I'm wrong. It's almost every single one of them. 9/11 was caused largely from our intervention in the Middle East. And then all of the things that happened after 9/11 caused more things in the future that we're having to deal with now. It's absolutely insane that we can sit back and act like we have nothing to do with this, or when these terrorist, quote, terrorist groups come into play and start doing terrorist things, that we had nothing to do with it and we have to go stop them. Well, who gave them the guns? Who created them? And who gave them something to fight against? Because it was us. We are the terrorists. The American military is the greatest terrorist force in the history of the planet. And currently you're seeing that play out in Iran. But even before that, you were seeing it play out in Israel, the 51st state of America. I mean, that is a colony of ours who is actively doing genocide against the Palestinian people, who are basically completely innocent in every way. And so that is imperialism. That's what we're dealing with. It's the newest form of colonialism. It's been around for a long time, but I do think it's very important to study. And I think if you had the interest to come and listen to this podcast, I would very greatly like if you would go do some of your own research on imperialism and grow your thoughts on it. But that's just kind of I wanted to give you was a jumping off point where if you've never heard things like this, go and look at them for yourself. Because, I mean, I can tell you numbers all day, but I want you to go look at some of those pictures. Like, look and really read about what happened during the Iraq War or the War on Terror in general. The studies show that the conservative number for the deaths responsible by America in the War on Terror are 4.5 million. 4.5 million. And I think that number, this part I'm not remembering as well, but I think the number of civilians was around 2.5 to 3 million or something like that. And once again, conservative. So millions of civilian deaths and millions of actual combat casualties in just that War on Terror from 2001 to 2021. That's 20 years, 4.5 million deaths. We've done way worse than that throughout our entire history, especially post-1945 in total. We've done way worse. There were millions of people killed in the Korean War. I believe 1 million civilians killed in the Korean War. I mean, there is not an innocent war in America's post-World War II history. There just isn't one. Go look at every single one of them. I have a YouTube video up on this channel where I believe it's my first video I ever put out. I did a research into the most recent, since Jimmy Carter, the most recent presidents of the United States, and how every single one of them is a war criminal. And I just did the base level research and found examples, multiple examples of every single president since Jimmy Carter being a war criminal. That's just scratching the surface, people. And I want more people to go and look into things like this. We cannot just walk around and sip our Starbucks and read on our iPhone and just scroll through TikToks of whatever stupid shit while we're killing children overseas and just stick our heads in the sand and act like, oh, well, you know, that sucks, but it's happening over there. No, it is our government. It's the people we voted for. It's the people we voted against. It's the entire structure, and it's not a left versus right thing. The thing that the conservatives and Democrats are absolutely 100% bipartisan on is war and imperialism. They agree 100% on imperialism. Now, they may disagree on methods. The Democrats like to do a little bit more of a gentler, gayer pronoun version of murder and rape of babies and children overseas, but they're still doing the same shit. Make no mistake. I mean, Obama was the president. He inherited Afghanistan and Iraq, and he stayed in Afghanistan and increased the troops and then finally pulled them out. And he stayed in Afghanistan for his entire presidency. He never left Afghanistan. And also he drone struck Syria. He blew up civilian hospitals, Doctors Without Borders. He firebombed their buildings. I mean, even the greatest presidents in liberal minds are war criminals. FDR, who I once thought was like the greatest president, I heavily respected him, literally did a program of sterilization in Puerto Rico, an American colony, by the way, not even like a separate state. It's an American colony who has no control over their government. It's completely controlled by America. And FDR wanted to sterilize them and actually did implement some of the program on a smaller scale to sterilize them because he thought they were lesser people. That is the social democrat, like liberal, perfect president for most of these people. And even he was doing genocidal acts in Puerto Rico, which is technically within our own borders. So, and he put Japanese people in internment camps. I mean, America, this is what you need to understand as a baby leftist or progressive, is a lot of these things, this imperialism, it all ties back to capitalism, and that can definitely be a different podcast if you would like me to go more into depth into that. It's all tied back into capitalism, and a lot of this, most of this, I would argue, is beyond reform. This system was built and created for the results it's getting. It's not an accident. And so what you have to think to yourself is, this system is working as intended, which means this system has to be torn down and completely rebuilt in a different way. My opinion would be under some form of democratic socialism. But when this system is killing and maiming and abusing people overseas constantly for its entire existence, because we aren't the first ones to do it, we're just probably the best at it. You might at some point start to say, let's throw the bitch away. Let's throw that sumbitch in the trash. Let's start over again. And how about, we actually care about one another, other humanity, other people? How about we say, these lines that a bunch of white European guys drew on a map that isn't real and splits people apart by ethnic groups that also aren't real and also don't actually exist in most cases, and splits us by races which aren't real. Maybe we throw those in the trash and say, hey, we're all humans, and let's work together for a better humanity. Let's work together for a better life. And I think what you would find is that a large majority of the entire planet's population wants that. The problem is the large majority of the planet's ruling class do not. I would say pretty much all of them do not want that, because the ruling class is set up. The ruling class built the capitalist system for themselves, and they somehow convinced the plebs like me and you to do their dirty work for them. This system would be entirely impossible to keep running if we banded together and said, fuck it, like, let's actually organize and overthrow this. I think that's something that people just don't understand, is when you say, well, what can we do? I want to do a different podcast about this later and go much more into depth about it, but if we just did a general strike and commercial as well as labor, there's nothing they could do about it across the entire country as well as across international borders. There's nothing they could do to stop us besides just go in the streets and kill us. And then, what happens after that? But yeah, I just wanted to get on here and give you guys a little bit of hopefully a roadmap if you're not necessarily accustomed to debating these topics like imperialism, U.S. military. And I think if you arm yourself with the reading and the resources to combat these type of points, you can actually combat them. You can actually be effective in them. Don't ever go into arguments like this with people, especially people that you don't know specifically, without the proper information, because a lot of times they do have these practiced, points and practiced talking points that they can get across and make you sound kind of stupid, even if you know in your heart, hey, killing babies is bad, and everyone knows that. You have to know how to get these points across, and I hope I can help in arming you with the ability to teach yourself on how to do that. So that's kind of all I have for today. Hopefully I will be back tomorrow. If I can, I'll keep trying to do this every day, but there's no promises there. The length of these might change. I don't know. I'm just kind of coming on here and yapping, seeing what sticks. I got a few ideas in the last comment section. So if you made it all the way here, please let me know what you would like to see in future episodes. Some of the ideas that I got that I definitely like and want to try out. There was people asking for a deep dive on social democracy and why it's not actually the answer and why we actually have to go further. I think that's a great idea. there was an idea about different sects of communism, socialism, leftism, and what differs from them, how they came to be, things like that. I think that's a great idea. And if you have any other ideas that you want to hear about, let me know. I'm down to do current events. I'm down to do historical events, examples of socialist projects, current socialist projects, things like that. Whatever you want to see, just go down in the comments and let me know. And if you made it this far, please like, please comment, and please subscribe. You don't understand how much this helps me. I really do want to try my best to make this, maybe not this specifically, but just the content creation, internet space. I want to make this into something that I can actually do and sustain, because I feel personally like I'm doing more to help and more to change than working some crappy 9-to-5 job like I've ever done in my entire life and paying taxes to the government who's going to go do horrible things. I feel like I can actually do more change here, and the bigger the audience gets, the more change I can make and do fundraisers and things like that for people who actually need the money once I'm off my feet and I can actually support myself as well. So I do want to turn this into something real. I do really want to try. I'm working really hard at it. I'm also a student at the exact same time. So please go out there. Please support me. Please support other creators. Go out there. And if you feel inclined, I would like for you guys to go out there and create things and go out there and spread your message. And I really appreciate you guys for coming and listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.